Hey guys, welcome back to Day-Today Chess. This is Sabina back home, and I hope you're ready to season up your Sunday to kick up the week with an endgame study explained. And so far we've been looking at some king-pawn endgames, rook endgames, some interesting endgames of Kubel's the past week. But then I had this trip to Rome where I played in the first women's online World Chess Championship. Probably I didn't say that right, but anyways, it was a really great event, and I was so happy to have been able to qualify, and ended up finished 7th. I think it was a really good result compared to my starting number, which was the last one. So I was very happy, and it was a great organization. So I'm going to be looking at some of my games this coming week. I don't think it would be a good idea to catch up with the week. I know I missed a couple of days, but I don't think it would be that interesting maybe for some of you, so that I post to 3-4 videos to kind of catch up. So I've decided to just stick to my season-up Sunday, and of course then from here on we'll be getting back to the normal schedule where I'm going to be posting one video a day. Besides, on December 1st, I'm preparing you a surprise. I've already mentioned to you in a couple of videos ago, I believe, about my surprise. But anyways, for those of you who don't know, check out my previous videos and you'll find out what I'm talking about. If not, on December 1st, hopefully you will enjoy my surprise. Okay, so for today I've prepared for you a very cute, I think, knight endgame, and hopefully you will enjoy it as much as I did when I saw it. This endgame was made by Vladimir Bron in 1948. So here is the position. This is the position. It is white to move, and of course white has to win. So please be sure to pause the video and try to solve the position. Alrighty, so probably you're back now, and let's see what's going on in this position. I mean, it looks kind of equal, right? I mean, knight, pawn, but there is something very important that white is going to utilize in order to win this position. And that important thing is the fact that black's king is stuck in the corner, and their knight is stuck there as well. I mean, now has some opportunities of getting out, but we have to make sure that is not going to happen. Okay, so it's very important to notice the king in h8, number one thing, and then try to find a way to make sure that knight from g8 is not going to get away from there. So also some other very important idea that's going to be used in this endgame study is the triangulation of the king. So why do we use the idea of triangulation? Well, we use it in order to gain a move and make sure that we get into a position where whichever we want to move is going to move. So basically, let's just say we would have this position and we would want to get this into this position with black to move. I mean, obviously this is not going to happen, and that's not the idea of the position, to get into the same position with black to move. But what you have to understand is that you're going to make some moves with the king in general in a triangle. Sometimes you actually make a square. You end up making a square, not a triangle, but it kind of goes like this. King, let's say f7, f8, e8, and you basically get the position from where you started. So not in all positions you can do that, but normally you encounter this theme in king-pawn endgames, and of course it's going to be very similar in knight endgames. Why? Because knight endgames are supposed to be the same as king-pawn endgames. Most of them, about maybe 90% of the cases, if the king-pawn endgame is won, the same will happen if knights are on the board. In most of the cases. Now here, of course, if we take out the knights from the board, the position would be a draw, because with the h-pawn there's no way to win, even if we end up capturing black's h-pawn. But in general, you should remember this, that in most of the cases, having a king-pawn endgame that's won, if we add knights on the board, it should be the same. Anyways, having said all that and having talked for so long, let's just get to the solution of this position. So now we realize that the king is stuck in h8, so we definitely do not want to let it go out. So first move, and very important, is king f7. And not only do we keep this king cornered in h8, but also we control these two squares so that this knight cannot escape. And now in this position, black has two possibilities. Either getting out with the knight to h6, check, or playing h6. These are the only two possible moves. Obviously, if black goes knight f6 or e7, he's going to lose because we have a knight and we have a pawn, and we're going to be able to win this position. If for some of you who are not familiar with this, let's just put it here for a second just to be sure you can see how this is won. So we can go, for example, let's say king e7, and if you go here, we give you check first, just making sure you're getting back on the back rank. Then we can go king e8. You have to go, well, in the corner, let's say. Then we go king f7. Now you're in stalemate. You have to play h6 and give away the pawn. And once we win the pawn, I think it's quite simple. You get out with the knight, either knight g4 or knight f5. The king goes back. Then we go king g6, right? Push h6. You go king h8. Obviously, we don't push h7, but we go knight here, h7. And if you go to the corner, obviously there's knight f7 mate. And if you go king f8, obviously we promote, and you know how to win from there. So this is basically the way you win. You first put black's king on stalemate, force him to push the pawn, end up winning the pawn, and win the game. Very simple, right? So let's go back to the starting position, well, after king f7, and see some of black's other possibilities. And I mentioned h6. The idea is that black doesn't want to push that pawn too early. He actually tries to avoid pushing the pawn as much as he can, because otherwise he's going to lose that pawn. And the way to win this with white in this position is very simple. We can just go knight f5. Now the knight has no moves. I mean, he has, but we're going to capture it. So king h7 seems the only plausible move here in this position. And now we are going to play knight d6. And after this move, king h8 is the only solution. And here we go knight e8. And it is very important to understand what we're going to do next. And this actually brings back to the main line of the game. Well, not the game, the knight h6, which is the first move that black can play, and it's going to make this position a little bit longer. So we are going to get back to this position just in a second. Let's get back to the main line after king f7, knight to h6. And here in this position, we go king f8. Definitely it's so important to keep this king cornered, but also, as you notice, this knight in e3 is so well placed because it controls both of the squares, and you cannot exit with the knight. So black has to go back knight g8, and in this position it is very important to restrain that knight as much as we can so that black is forced to play h6. So that's why these are the two squares where that knight wants to go. So we play knight g4. Black has to play h6. Obviously, if you play knight h6, please guys, do not capture to have a stalemate in this position, okay? Don't capture. But play in this position knight e5. This is the correct move. That's winning the game, because now black cannot move the king or the pawn, and no matter where they move the knight, we are going to have knight f7 checkmate. So that's the reason why knight h6 is not a good move. You're trying to get into a stalemate, but you know, white is not silly to allow that to happen. So after knight g4, h6 is black's only move. And now we have to realize the importance of that move. King f7, black has to play king h7, and here we are getting with the knight, as I mentioned to you, in e8. this is the square where we want that knight to get. Before it was different. We got through f5, but here in this main line we had to go knight g4 to make sure that knight remained restrained there. Now that the knight is restrained, the pawn cannot move anymore. Black's only moves are king h7, king h8. Obviously they cannot give away the knight. We've already seen how we would be winning in that case. So now it is very important to bring this knight to e8. And how do we do so? Well, knight c4, king h7, knight d6, king h8, knight e8. Good, king h7. Now that we brought the knight there, why was it so important? Well, because this knight here controls g7 and this pawn controls g6. So now we ensured the black can only play king h8, king h7. Those are his only moves. And now we have to find a way to get a triangulation with our king. But since we cannot really do it there or here, we have to get out with the king, king e6, king h8, and now we need to be careful where we are making the triangle because we don't want to let black escape with the knight in e7. So now we figured out that the three squares where we're going to make a triangle are these three. And let's see why it is so important to get this triangle. King d6 first, king h7. Now we can go king d7, or we could have done it the other way around. It was really the same. King d7, king h8, and now we come back to e6. Okay, so we made this triangle this way. Of course, as I said, we could have done it the other way around as well, that way, as long as we get into this position, king h7, and now we go king f7, king h8, and you remember, actually, we had this position before, and it was white to move, but now we have the same position, and it is black to move, so they have to go in the corner. And now, the reason we needed this is because now we want to bring our knight, actually, to f8 this way. And let's see how we want to get in that position. King h8, knight c7, king h7, knight e6, king there. We wanted to get exactly this position where we are playing knight f8 and that king is stuck in h8, cannot get out. And now black's only move is to give away the knight on one of the squares, either e7 or f6. And then we've already seen from the beginning of the study how white is going to win. I'm going to put it in a second for you, but I just want to go back to the position where we started that king maneuver. So after we brought the knight to e8, black came king h7. Had we played knight c7, king h8, knight e6, king h7, knight f8 check, black would have gone king h8, and now you cannot do anything more than just maybe knight g6 check, I come back, and then obviously at some point you'll have to make the triangle to be able to win this position. If you do not do the triangle, it is impossible to make black give away his knight, and his knight is protecting h6, the king just stays there, and there's nothing to do. And with the knight, we already know with the knight you cannot actually win moves. That was the reason why the knight had to go first in that position. The knight had to go to e8 to make sure the king only had those two moves, then come with the king so beautifully, e6, d6, d7, e6. So we made this triangle to win a move, to actually get into that position when we play knight f8, that black is in Zugzwang, and here black has to give away the knight. Whether you want f6 or e7, it really doesn't matter, because we simply take. Now we can just go maybe knight g6, let's say. The king comes to h7. Now we can move the knight somewhere. King goes, we come king g6, take the pawn and win the game. So this was Bron Vladimir's endgame study, which he created in 1948. A very beautiful and instructive study, I believe. I really hope you enjoyed it. And like usually, stay tuned for more tomorrow. This time there won't be any breaks. And I'll see you soon. Have a great week. Bye.